Aloha mai kako, aloha. Welcome to the first ever Budget Summit. To kick off our first opening remarks is one of our freshman stars, a gentleman who graduated from Yale, went to work at the White House to learn the ropes of government. He's an education expert, and he's going to tell us the various ideas that are related to guiding principles for a vibrant and bright economy. Please join me in welcoming Aaron Johanson. Representative Johanson, please.
Well, as Jean mentioned, education is my passion, but we're all students here today, and I think that's the hat that I put on, and I think that's the hat that most of us will wear because the economic experts are always debating, but what we've tried to do in our guiding principles is distill into four fairly accessible, easy, but so critical and fundamental guiding principles that we believe underpin a vibrant economy in Hawaii. So just to set, it'll set some of the context for our discussion today. And I think it breaks up largely into three groups. The economy is composed of the employer, or the small businesses that are the backbone of our economy, the people and the workforce that make up that economy, and sometimes the silent partner, but that can be equally influential, government. So first off, just as a quick review, I'll go into job creation, economic diversification, a lower cost of living and a lower cost of doing business, and a transparent, accountable government. On the subject of job creation, I think this is a truism that exists in the national dialogue as well as the state dialogue. No one denies the importance of creating jobs. Jobs employ people. They allow people to have discretionary income such that they can invest in the economy in whatever they choose, whether it's through retail purchases or investing in a business. That's typically the economic cycle and how it goes. What we'd also like to introduce today, and it's not revolutionary, but it often can be forgotten, is it's important not just to create jobs, but it's important to create good jobs. But what we mean by good jobs are jobs that have a dynamic economic multiplier. And part and parcel of that leads into actually something, again, that dominates dialogue here in Hawaii, but can be hard to remember when we're talking about tax credits or industries, especially amidst difficult budget decisions, and that's economic diversification. Again, everyone in this building would pay lip service to that, and I think everyone believes that, but when it comes down to fundamental economic policy, the bills that we're passing here and what the state is considering is how much are we going to diversify from tourism, from military spending, et cetera. And actually, I think we have our first slide here, which highlights, you can see, it's a little hard to see from the colors here, but that most of our economy is based on government spending, which includes the military, as well as a significant chunk of real estate. This next slide actually shows it probably best in terms of what our economy is fundamentally composed of right now. Now, why that's gotten us along fine, but not left us in a particularly great position, is we are relatively vulnerable to various economic pressures that exist throughout the United States as well as the country, especially as well as the international realm, especially in an increasingly globalized economy. Particularly when you're relying on tourism, that's a discretionary purchase. That means when there's a natural disaster or people are going through a bad economy, they don't have discretionary income, they don't travel to a tropical paradise. Especially, you can see with the federal government, when the military waxes and wanes and goes through periods of boom or bust, depending on administration or different tensions throughout the world, military expenditures go up and down. Again, not something radical that we're talking about here, but something that is fundamentally important. And I think what we would like to emphasize, especially today, is it's important to understand that there are natural competitive advantages that Hawaii has for diversifying its economy. So there are things that make sense to develop and to nurture here as industries, and there are others that economically just don't make sense because they're not competitive. And that's what we need to keep in mind. So there are natural areas where Hawaii has a niche, whether it's in aerospace or aquaculture. We're surrounded by an ocean. All those things, creative media industries, all those things, Hawaii has a natural competitive advantage, which means that the market is going to favor Hawaii. It's not just government building the infrastructure and saying, we're open for business, come. There's a natural economic incentive for businesses and for industries to grow here. Also inherent in a successful, vibrant economy is your workforce and your people. Right now, it doesn't take much to talk to your neighbor to figure out that everybody feels like they have an incredibly high cost of living. And why a high cost of living is detrimental to a successful economy is because, again, people don't have any money except to survive. People are not able to thrive, which means, again, they don't have that discretionary income to purchase whatever they would like to. That's not just a core necessity. That discretionary income to invest in businesses, to employ more people. Bringing down the cost of living helps not only our people, but it helps industry grow as well. It's what businesses rely on in terms of people purchasing their products or people investing. So again, a lower cost of living and a lower cost of doing business is also something that we feel is foundational to a vibrant economy. And last, but certainly not least, that invisible partner. Sometimes in this state, it's more than invisible. Just depends on your perspective. But I think the economy also, a successful economy, relies on a transparent and accountable government. The market has to be able to predict what government is going to do, the thrust of its regulations, the direction that it's moving in. It can't do that if it doesn't know what government is doing and it's not out in the open. It also can't do that if government is pursuing wildly different strategies year to year. And I think that's something that we're all very cognizant of in this building as we consider potential tax credits, either enacting them, suspending them. They're not easy decisions, but the market has to be able to adjust. And businesses are, vis-a-vis most entities in the world, are incredibly agile and often can adjust. But we have to consider that we need to give them room and time to do so. And the best way to do that is to have a transparent governmental process where people can follow the various iterations of legislation as well as the different ideas, and where there's a consistent economic policy emanating from both the legislative and executive branch. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Representative Gil Riviere, who will be talking more specifically about government.
Good morning. My task today is to talk about how we might begin to revamp, reconsider, and retool for the future. The question is, the question is this. It's really very, very simple when you get right down to it. The execution is a little more difficult, but the question is this. Are we willing to do what it takes to retool our government to make it healthy for the long run? Are we willing to do that? And I pull upon some life experiences that I've had in various businesses, whether it's as a salesman or as a sales manager of a business equipment company, or as a mortgage broker, or as the owner of a mortgage brokerage company, or whether it's traveling. You know, when you want to get somewhere but there's no transportation today, how badly do you want to get there? Do you want to get there bad enough? And it all comes down to the people who succeed in life. They're not lucky. They make it happen. They say that brick walls are there to keep you out, but they're not. Brick walls are to keep everybody else out. So we've got to find a way to get past these barriers that come up to us. So are we willing to do whatever it takes to get it done? If we are truly willing to do what it's going to take, then we will find a way, and in many cases we won't have to do whatever it takes. We just have to be willing to make that commitment, and answers and possibilities will avail themselves. Are we willing to live within our means? That's the question. That's what everybody's asking these days. Can the state continue to go in business as usual? And that's an old, tired cliche now, and we've got to be living within our means. But we do. Everybody that I talk to says, please don't kill me with higher taxes, most of them. Some of them says, I don't want to take a pay cut. But then nobody wants to take a pay cut, and there are tough choices in life. So what are our priorities? Are our priorities something that can be determined way up on high? Is that how an efficient society functions, that it's controlled from a central agency? Are we, the members of the legislature, so smart that we can figure out every business that should succeed? Should we be trying to pick winners and losers? Those are fundamental questions that we have to ask. Rather, I would suggest that each agency, each department best knows how to run their department. As we go through this budgeting process, we've got 592 pages of line items, and we flip through, and in each budget year, we're taking one job out of here and we're putting one job in there, one job out of here, putting one job in there. Does that seem like the way that you would want to run your business, that you've got somebody else telling you you've got 5 jobs here and you can only move 3 jobs there? Or does that tie your hands as an agency to do and to staff and to get where you're going? So we have, obviously, business is different than government, and they probably cannot ever function identically, but there are philosophies that work. Businesses succeed when they can move and adjust with the going times. So I would suggest, again, that the legislature get out of the business of micromanaging industries, choosing winners, telling agencies what to do. I've resisted when we introduced bills on the introduction this year, I resisted bills that would mandate this. I have a lot of ideas, what I'd like to see happening here and there, but again, am I qualified to tell a certain department how best to run it? I think not. I think within the department, they know if we expect them to do what it takes to get it done. And I think they are willing to do that if given the opportunity. Is when they feel powerless because they're being told what to do and they can't possibly do it, that I think things start breaking down. So retooling. What are we going to do about retooling this government? We hear about that. We hear about new efficiencies. We hear about reforming government. And it's an age-old thing. There's nothing new under the sun, as they say. But we do have agencies in this state government who are still using 3x5 cards. They're still using 1980s computers. They're still filling out forms in triplicate so that it can go to one desk and then go to the next desk. And as efficient as many of our information is, our ehawaii.gov is pretty good. There's a lot of information we can find online. We're not there yet, and we're not there within the state government. Why is the efficiency so important? Well, it goes to hospitals. The hospitals are important, are particularly important in rural areas, but they're costing a lot of money to operate. And again, why are they costing so much? Well, there's studies that reveal again and again, we know what the answers are, but we just aren't willing to do what it takes. Our hospitals are hamstrung by hiring and firing rules. They can't move people efficiently. They can't make decisions. Procurement can be cumbersome. So there are ways to reform the hospitals without just dropping them in free fall. Nobody's suggesting that that happened. But we are, in our budget recommendations, we are talking about reforming the way healthcare is delivered in rural areas where we need to protect, we need to provide the emergency services and the medical services, but we can't continue to go forward because we're losing money every single year. I mean, lots of money. Retooling the government. We've heard very recently with the negotiations with the unions, we've heard that the state workers get 21 days vacation, 21 days sick leave, 13 days, sometimes 14 days holidays. That leads up to 55 days a year, if you're doing the math. And then now they'll get probably another 9 days off. So 64 days a year for state workers. That's a lot of days off when usually in a private business, if you work a year, they might give you a week off. You might not get sick time off. We have a large government. We have 43,000 or 45,000, depending how you count it, state workers. That's great because we got a lot of services and we got a lot of people in need. Do we need that many? Now's the time to ask that question. Are we willing to do what it takes to make the state healthy for the long run? What is our long-range vision? We're doing some good things in the Finance Committee this year. We have put through, the leadership, majority leadership, has put through some good bills for reforming pensions, benefits. Nobody, of course, if I'm receiving benefits, I don't want my benefits cut. But for the health of this state, we cannot have an open-ended, you can have whatever you want and it's free forever no matter what the cost. That must not happen. And so we are pulling in some of these untenable expenses for the future. But they don't affect the balance budget this year. And that's okay, because this caucus has really taken a stand on taxing pensions and changing the game after people have stopped playing. You can't change the rules after the game has been played. And so taxing pensions is absolutely something that we have opposed, because it's unfair. You know, you worked, the deal was, when I get to the end, I'm going to have this much money or a relative amount of money, and to take that away later. And you can fluff it up and put a dress on it and decorate it and make it real pretty and say, that's okay, it's just the rich guys paying it. But ultimately, that's not fair. Why should someone who worked hard and earned a pension, why should they be taxed while someone else who worked hard but maybe doesn't get their pension taxed? So we talk about fairness and equity in life, and we can't change rules after the fact. Just a couple more thoughts here on the long-range vision. Getting government back on side, as it were, or living within its means. There's a theory that I'd like to share with you that many of us haven't thought about, I didn't know about till recently, is, you know, the idea of a smaller workforce is actually a more secure workforce. The nature of government is to expand. The nature of business, the nature of everything is to expand. So you get more people in your department, you block your money, and the next year you get a little bit more money, and you add more people, you do more services, and you have this mission creep. But at some point, you've extended so far that you're vulnerable. So if we stay and we have a concept of sticking to our core mission, and we work efficiently and we work to actually limit the mission creep and the spread and the hiring of employees, that suddenly now 45,000 state employees we can't afford to pay. The governor's got to negotiate for labor savings, because 70% of our state budget goes to labor costs and benefits. 70%. So we can chop everything we want off the other end, but we're not going to get there because we have too much obligations. So that, in summary then, I would just say this. We've got to delegate authority. We've got to require. We've got to expect accountability. We've got to get out of the way. This legislature is famous for getting in the way of efficiencies. So what is our vision? Are we willing to do what it takes? Are we willing to live within our means? And has there ever been a more critical or more important time for us to rise to the occasion and make that happen? I would say that time is now. We need to get on with the tough decisions and get our balanced budget back in shape. Thank you very much.
This is a really big responsibility because the time is so short and the number is so big. We got to come up literally with $228 million between now and June 30th. So we got a little bit of time to come up with $1 billion, but we have virtually no time to come up with the $228 million. The choices that Governor Abercrombie has listed, and revenue increases from Governor Abercrombie, you can see the pension tax at $37,500. The House didn't buy that. The Senate didn't buy it. In fact, the Senate even kicked out the higher level, so we skipped that entirely. And we only go down to where at the bottom we are going to have the rainy day fund. We click on the rainy day fund and we reduce that by $46 million. And just like a mortgage calculator, you click on it and it automatically goes through the Excel spreadsheet formula and reduces the deficit. We chose only that one because this is a rainy day time. These are hard times in the state of Hawaii. We felt if there's any good use for the rainy day fund, it will be this one. Notice below it, it says Hurricane Relief Fund. That is something that the governor wanted to take all of, and I know when we get to it, we actually borrow from the Hurricane Relief Fund, and I'm proud to say that the House Finance Committee actually amended a bill to do the same thing instead of taking it. We do delay the state income tax refunds for higher income to reap about $17 million in FY12, but then we pay it back in FY13. The assumption, ladies and gentlemen, is that the economy was growing and is going to grow, but we need some breathing time. And that's why we don't want to stall the economy, because we are, in effect, starting to grow again. If you heard the report this morning, the flights are, the seat numbers of arrivals is back up and looks to be stabilizing, but we can never be sure, except we want to make sure that the economy stays as stable as we can in the interim. We skipped the next proposal for $33 million, repealing state deductions for incomes. We think people need those, and we're not going to touch them. We don't want the cost of housing or renovations to increase, so we're going to bypass that suspension of exemptions for the GT tax. We don't want the price of you traveling between here and the neighbor islands or the neighbor islands and here to go up. We do not take away the suspension for the airlines to have their leases on their aircraft nor their maintenance facilities. We also do not do the subleasing exemption. We do not take away the subleasing exemption because the small businesses are usually the ones that are on the end of that and have to end up paying for it. Let's go down to the bottom of the page where the liquor tax, 20% liquor tax brings in about $40 million. We did not choose, not because we like to drink, but because we know that when Roy Yamaguchi came in and from Roy's Restaurant, and Tom Jones from Gyotaku came in and said, guys, this isn't the Finance Committee, guys, we're hurting. If you do it, it's even going to hurt our economy all the more, which is already hurting. We got a new visitor that's coming, getting out of the airport. They get in their car. They don't go to their hotel room. They go to either Safeway or the big boxes and get a week or two worth of food and booze, and then they don't even go out and eat anymore because of the high cost of eating out. So that liquor tax is a very sensitive one, and they suggested not even to get near it, so we haven't.